2015 is shaping up to be a big year of change in healthcare. Where do you see the biggest change happening in healthcare in 2015?
Our company serves the drug development part of that healthcare spectrum. And there's a lot of change going on in terms of more outsourcing. That's one of the big themes you're seeing for pharma companies. They want to use more variable costs and not so much fixed costs, and pick up expertise from various providers. That's one theme. The other theme that's happening is the introduction of a lot of new technologies for how you capture data and manage information. And those are all trends that will be very beneficial to healthcare generally, because it'll lead to higher efficiency, quicker development of drugs. For example, in the idea of more outsourcing, it's not just for CROs, but it's also across the spectrum of everything pharma companies do. They realize they can't do everything at the right scale, and they can rely on partners to help them. And those partners many times are experienced, deep experienced companies that have as much capacity and capability as they do. And so the fact that they can rely on them, get it on a variable consumption basis, as a service almost, it provides them flexibility that they don't have in the old model.
I know partnerships have been part of healthcare and pharma for a long time, but do you see partnerships as sort of the way of the future and the way for the business to advance?
Absolutely. I think one of the themes that goes on is that companies grow into a point of view where they have a certain expertise, a certain area where they're creating economic value for their shareholders. And other places they may have capacity, but they may not be as good as others are. And so the theme of focus on what you're best at and rely on partnership to augment that and to amplify that is really a strong theme in business generally, and I think it's coming much more into the pharmaceutical industry than it used to. And it's across the entire development platform, from manufacturing through development through even post-marketing.
Looking ahead, what do you see as sort of the biggest challenges coming up in healthcare from the spot that you guys sit?
There's a lot of challenge in terms of getting the right technology in place to help address what needs to get done. And particularly for me as a CIO, I look at the challenges in the world of capturing information, managing information. It's exploding in terms of the number of types of information that are out there. The variety and the velocity is all increasing. And so how do you set up a system to handle that at scale and provide quick response to questions? And not only the responses themselves, but also how do those responses make sense from the point of view of developing drugs, from the clinician's point of view, the medical point of view. So the big challenge we see across the industry, and we see it ourselves internally, is what do we do about it? And I think we have to invest in new technologies, new capabilities that allow us to not only capture that information, but then present it in a way that's compelling and allows people to find almost an intuitive and powerful approach to how to answer questions that they don't even know they want to ask yet.
And so within that challenge, there's obviously a lot of opportunity, it sounds like.
There is. I think one of the big opportunities that we have is to look at the capability for presenting information in a way that's different than others. So you can talk about the ways of handling all the data, for example, and you bring data in. That's a very complex process, especially as data transitions from traditional sources to more diverse sources like electronic medical records or genomic information or medical Fitbits, things like that. That ingestion of information, the handling of this structured and unstructured data, in many senses, that's the plumbing. It's a very hard question, and could spend a lot of time talking about that. But really the thing that makes the difference, the secret sauce in all of it, is how you present it. And if you can present it in a way that's native almost, that it appeals to it's tuned almost to the expertise of the people you're trying to get to, the medics and the clinicians, then it becomes something different. And I think the differentiation that will happen and the investment that's going to be made by the industry around this is going to be around making that technology come to life in a way that informs decision making. And that's where this big data aspect comes through, because it's not just the data itself, it's how you manage the data and present the data in a way that allows for better decision making. And the outcome of that, of course, is faster trials, more efficiency, better judgments being made along the way.
In looking at sort of the technology in healthcare and efficiency, points that you were talking about, do you see the next couple of years as really sort of being breakthroughs in that area?
Absolutely. I think that some of the technologies that are being applied now inside the pharmaceutical industry have been applied successfully in other areas. Some of this distributed computing, massive parallel processing, Hadoop, or however you want to capture it. Those technologies which have been used in other industries and have revolutionized the handling of information in other industries is coming into our world. And it's important because the explosion of information types is also happening at the same time. So for a lot of pharmaceutical companies, they're they're stuck with a problem that they find very, very difficult to solve. The new technology allows them to solve it at using partnership, I think, a lot of times, to solve it in a way that's faster, and in many ways allows them to do things they otherwise couldn't have done. And so the winners in this will be the ones who understand that sort of core plumbing aspect of it, but also bring forward something that really is informed from the point of view of where the pharmaceutical company is. So if you go out to these conferences, you see a lot of companies out there talking about technology, and it's technology in search of a solution. And it only crosses about halfway to where you need to get to. To get to this side, you need to have industrial expertise, people who've actually done this for 20, 30 years, informing the systems you're setting up.
So really is that sort of partnership between technology and healthcare coming together, because obviously clinicians are sort of, and researchers are a big part of that sort of equation as well, but you can't get there without the technology.
Yeah, the other part of it is I think that these technology solutions aren't just for drug development. They're actually emblematic of a general theme about how do you manage information for health. And so some of the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow with risk-based monitoring, which is very much specific to developing drugs, those same core platforms, the same visualizations and technology solutions there can be applied for managing individual health. And you can imagine if you had your blood test, for example, and you wanted to match up your blood test against population-based metrics to see how you're trending in your disease state over time, having that informed by a mathematical model or data-informed, data-enriched models will be very helpful to you as an individual managing your own individual health care.
So big data is obviously a big topic of this conference, and it's a big topic in the industry, but I'm also interested to find out, what do you think is a topic that's sort of flying under the radar that isn't getting as much attention that you think deserves it?
Right. Well, I've talked a lot about technology, and I think what's underappreciated is just how challenging the problem is. I mentioned the explosion of data types and the massive quantity of data that they have to actually manage. The old models, the relational database models and so forth, really won't be very flexible, and they won't be able to handle this suddenly diverse set, this ecosystem of new information. And so new data models need to be put in place, new systems for capturing and transforming that data so you can get it from multiple sources and have it delivered into your system in a consistent way, and then present it in a way that actually makes sense. That's a big challenge, and it's sort of underappreciated right now. I think the pharma companies are starting to really focus on this, and they're making huge investments around it and looking much more aggressively at external solutions because they realize they can't solve the problem by themselves. So interoperability hopefully is the future. Hopefully, yes.